anything to say about the debate. I know that he doesn't seem. I remember specifically hearing the words "I don't give a damn" when I asked him about the election. So I don't know if that was his official response in its entirety, but it sounds like he's in the same category as myself in terms of feeling that perhaps who you pick for president isn't going to make a difference. We've talked about that. Now, one thing that we're going to go through tonight in Dr. Anderson's book, The Black History Reader, is Black unemployment. I think unemployment is an appropriate term to discuss and break down because I don't know about y'all, but last night I didn't hear anybody really talk much about Black people or Black unemployment. The only time I heard a mention of Blackness was Trump accusing Kamala Harris of not really being Black. And I don't think that's debatable in the sense that we know what she is. She's her father's Jamaican and her mother is Indian. Does that make her Black? Well, it depends on how you look at it. I mean, Jamaicans are Black. A lot of them are Afro Jamaicans anyway. And also, but it does not make her a descendant of slavery, right? So that to me is that's the fact. It's done. There's nothing else to debate. The only thing that's debatable at that point is whether or not that's enough. For some people, that's enough. For some people, to say, okay, yeah, she's right up there with us. She's one of us. And for some people, it's like, no, 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 no. They're not like us. She's not a descendant of slavery. And I think that that's worth mentioning because I think it's going to take a descendant of slavery to really get in there and really fight for reparations for descendants of slaves. Like I haven't seen anybody engage in such a difficult, challenging, and politically costly fight like reparations when they're doing it for other people. I think Black people, African Americans, we're the only people that are trained to work that hard and sacrifice and lose everything for somebody else. Most other people don't do that. Most other groups are not going to give up everything for you, but we'll give up everything for them. But shout out to John Brown and people like that. John Brown lost his life fighting to try to free slaves, and unfortunately, from what I understand, they didn't help him. They sat there and watched him die because they were trained to just sit there and be scared. I don't know. I don't know what exactly. Dr. Anderson does write about John Brown in his book, The Black History Reader. So if you want to know his perspective on that, feel free to take a look at that. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fire a quick text to everybody that's in our class so they can join us, and then we're going to hop into reading what Dr. Anderson has to say about Black unemployment. And you might wonder why Black unemployment is so high. In fact, give me a yes if you know that Black unemployment is typically about twice as high as white unemployment. Give me a yes if you know this. Okay, so in case you don't know, Black unemployment, I'm going to show you a chart. Um, and what it's going to do is it's probably going to make you a little bit sad. But when I show you this and I explain this to you, I'm going to give you some theories that I have in terms of why this not only why this problem has persisted, but why I don't think it's ever going to go away. I don't think there's ever going to be a day where most of these businesses are going to hire Black people as quickly as they hire white people. I just don't believe that's the case. So let me pull up my chart here because I actually found a little graph that will kind of help illustrate the issue that we're talking about today. So let me open this up. Basically, on this chart I'm going to show you, it makes a simple case. It basically says that generally speaking, when white unemployment is high, Black unemployment is higher. When white unemployment goes up, Black unemployment goes up. When white unemployment goes down, Black unemployment goes down. But just like the rest of society, just like the rest of life, being a Black person is never the same as being white. That's just this sort of underclass status that you've always had. This is what you've accepted. This is what others have told us we should expect. And you can see here in this chart, the blue line represents white unemployment rates. And you see when it was high back around 2012, around the end of Barack Obama's first term, it was high for both white and Black, but Black people were about a little bit less than 14%. White people were about 7.5%. And then as white unemployment started to drop, so did Black unemployment. And it hits this low for Black people of about 6%. But at that point, white unemployment was a little about half of that, right? And so then it starts to spike up. White people go to 7.5%. We shoot back up to 11%. And then you see since 2020, since the pandemic, we've been dropping again, but we're always higher. We're always a little more unemployed than white people are. And this is a kind of persistent structural inequality that has not gone away. It has not changed. And the other thing I want you to notice about this graph is if you look at this chart and you look and see, look, here's where the lowest black unemployment has gotten in the last 15 years, about 6%. 6%. That amount, that percentage of unemployment, 6%, is only slightly lower than white unemployment at its absolute worst. So what am I saying here? That says that when we're doing our best, we're still not even doing much better than white people are doing when they're at their worst. Do you follow me? Let me know if you get what I'm saying here. So that even when we're having the best day imaginable, the best position an employed black person can be with our little black jobs, the best position we can be in is to be almost equivalent to the worst position you would be in if you were white. Did I get that point across? Does that matter? Are you noticing this? Does this affect you in some way? I mean, this is deep, right? We talk about black jobs and how we want to get our black jobs, and most of y'all were raised to go get a black job. But what this kind of says is that when you're at your best, you're still only doing slightly better than white people are doing at their worst. Now that's kind of tough. It's like if I run in a race and I run my fastest time ever, and somebody says, "Yeah, that's the same time I ran when I got last place." That's kind of a problem. That's sort of strange, right? So this is the economic dilemma that exists in America. This is the thing that is just the standard. Like this is the way. This is what it means to be black in the eyes of some. In the eyes of a lot of people, they say, "Well, what does being black mean?" Being black means that you're never going to be ahead. You're always going to be behind. You're in every measure of quality of life, from unemployment to everything else, you're always going to be dead last, and you need to just settle in like a rock in the mud. Just settle in your last place status and be happy to be there. Just be glad you ain't dead. Be glad, I hear people say, "Well, at least I ain't in jail. At least I didn't get killed. At least I ain't on drugs." Right? So basically, it's not just us who set our standard too low. Society sets the standard low. That's what you learn. You learn to set your standard low from a society that sets low standards for you because you send your kids to these schools run by interesting white people, and they set the bar for your son super low. So when your son comes out and says, "Well, at least I know how to read," then they're like, "Yeah, Tyrone can read. That's so good." But nobody's expecting Tyrone to be a rocket scientist. Nobody's expecting Tyrone to do anything profound with his life. Nobody's expecting him to be any kind of a leader or even a great father. Nobody's expecting him to be wealthy. Nobody's expecting him to be secure. There's an expectation that being black means you're going to be in this state of consistent despair. That's pretty much what the expectation is, and the only way you can break out of that is to break away from the systems that frame that expectation in the first place. You have systems that are structured this way. This is structural. This is what structural racism looks like. It's hilarious to me when people are like, "They racist." I'm like, "Well, what makes them racist?" "Well, I went to the restaurant and the lady said she don't like black people." You need the lady in the restaurant to like you for you to feel good about yourself? Like you really care what the lady in the restaurant thinks? So I could really destroy your self-esteem by just telling you I don't like you? Is that how fragile your self-esteem is? You do know you live in a world where everybody doesn't like you. You'll never be at a point where everyone likes you. So what is it about the lady in the restaurant saying that she doesn't like black people that makes you feel like you won't be able to feed your kids this month? Like what is it? It ain't got nothing to do with the price of tea in China. That lady don't pay no bills in your house. She ain't got no power anywhere other than when she's talking to you because you're the only person that acknowledges her power, and because somehow maybe you perhaps might have a little bit of that virus called white supremacy where you are literally elevating her to some sort of a god where you need the approval of the gods in order for you to feel like you're worthy. And I think that that's a problem. I think that's not her problem. That's your problem. I think that's not something that she's going because she ain't gonna fix it. She gonna be the same ignorant, toothless, hillbilly idiot that she was last week. But the question is, are you gonna elevate and realize what kind of trap you put yourself into by even sitting around wondering what these other people think about you? So my point is to say that at the end of the day, I think that when you talk about dealing with structural racism, part of the reason we don't fix it, in my opinion, is because we don't even understand what it looks like. We don't even understand what it is. Racism ain't got nothing to do with whether or not somebody likes you. A lot of people don't like each other. There's people I don't like. And if they're smart, they wouldn't give a damn about what I think. Like I told you all about how DL Hughley called and was cussing me out and screaming and hollering and yelling at me because he was mad because I think that he's ridiculous in terms of how he's just running around like acting like an employee of the Democratic Party. I was sitting on the phone thinking, number one, why are we arguing over this? I'm not going to argue with another black man over something as stupid as Democrat Republican stuff. I'm just not going to do that. It's not worth my time. But I said, number two, I was like, you're DL Hughley. You've been a famous comedian for 30 years. You're more famous than me. Why are you even getting out of character in this way, like making an ass out of yourself over somebody who doesn't matter? If I were you, I would just ignore me. That's what you're supposed to do. So what? Why? I don't even understand this. Like, what's going on with you that makes you even think that what I'm saying to you is even relevant? What if I'm in your shoes? You know what I do? I say, that's Boyce Watkins. He won't even be on TV like me. He ain't never been the king of comedy. He ain't never been at the. He ain't never performed at the Apollo. He ain't never been on. He didn't have a show on CNN. Right? That's what you do. That's what you. Right. So my point is to say that sometimes you give people power by even acknowledging whatever they said about you or whatever they're doing. Right. And I believe, honestly, I think that from birth, because we're educated by whites, we're employed by whites, we are rewarded and condemned by whites. We make them into our parents, where we are like little children seeking approval of our parents. We want to support our parents. We want to do the right thing by our parents. And if you ever seen a child, has anybody ever seen a child who's raised by like a drug addicted mother or something, and how they will spend all their time seeking approval from this crackhead mama that they got? Like mama, I got you some flowers today. I hope you have a good day. Get out of my face. Where my pipe at? Right? And that's kind of what it is. Like we literally are like these kids with these really abusive parents, and we really love our parents, and we want them to like us, and we want them to celebrate us. And when they give us a birthday party, or when they tell us that we're pretty, we run around and we scream and holler about how wonderful that is, as if they've actually given us something. They haven't given us anything. So I think that's why in politics they feed us so much symbolism, because symbolism really works on people that don't have much self-esteem. Do you understand? So anyway, here's um so when you talk about the worst of black unemployment, I want to kind of dig into that a little bit and actually read to you what Dr. Claude Anderson has to say. So we've seen the chart, and it pretty much shows that whatever white unemployment is, black unemployment is typically far worse than that. It's typically about double of that amount. Now, Dr. Anderson has a list of reasons why, and I'm gonna read this to you. Now, this is in his book. His book is called The Black History Reader. You can get a copy at powernomics.com. Please support this wonderful man, because he's really sacrificed his life for all of us. He just turned 89 years old, by the way. So, put a happy birthday in the chat for Dr. Anderson. And it says here under question 67 on page 194 of the Black History Reader, it says, did a real life Monopoly game replace slavery as the primary generator of wealth and power? Let's start with slavery. That way we can have a reparations conversation, and then we'll get to the black unemployment piece. He says, a monopoly by definition implies exclusive and total control of a commodity or service. Slavery was an economic system in which one group of people had absolute power and control over another group of people for the specific purpose of enriching themselves at the expense of the subjugated group. The wealth from institutional slavery became the foundation for real-life monopoly. On the eve of the Civil War, the private sector had invested more capital into slavery than all levels of government had invested in the entire nation up to that point in time. Pay attention now. Listen to this. Listen. This is important. Look, I'm going to read this again. I need y'all, please spike your ears up right now, because this sentence is powerful. On the eve of the Civil War, the private sector had invested more capital into slavery than all levels of government had invested in the entire nation up to that point in time. This is an important point for the reparations conversation. The reparations is not just owed by the government. Reparations is owed by any company that benefited from the rise of America. Any company. Apple Computer, you sitting on $3 trillion in wealth, you need to go ahead and sign that check. Microsoft, you sitting on 2 or 3 trillion, you need to go ahead and sign that check. Nvidia, sitting on trillions of dollars, you need to go ahead and sign that check. All these big Tesla, you can keep going. Ford, all the major corporations, IBM, sign that check. So what I want you to remember when they start talking about reparations, because what the first thing they're gonna do most likely is, after they deny it for the next 5 years, and say, well, we got to go study it. We don't understand. We need to understand how we do. They don't need to study nothing. They know how much money they owe you. That's already been studied for 50 years. Stop that. Well, after they do that, what they're going to do is they're going to say, well, the government, we don't have it in the budget because the budget is exhausted because we're out of money because your government's going broke. Because they're a bunch of financially irresponsible buffoons who have shot the national deficit up to, or the national debt up to a level that is highly unsustainable. I think they're going to spend more on interest on the debt than they spend on the whole military or something crazy like that. So they don't really have the money, but you know who does have the money? Oh, the billionaires, the major corporations. They can pay it. They can pay it. If you were to I don't know, let's say we were to look at some of the major corporations and look at some of these S&P 500 companies and their market capitalizations, and if you looked at the largest companies in America by market cap, you would find that there are lots of companies out there that can write a 200 million, $300 million check, and it doesn't even wrinkle their day. Nvidia has lost billions of dollars in market cap in a matter of hours. Apple's worth 2.9 trillion, Microsoft 2.4 trillion, Google 1.6 trillion, Amazon 1.4 trillion, Nvidia 1.1 trillion. I think these numbers are actually a little bit old because I think Nvidia is worth more than 1.1 trillion. Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett, right, cut the check. Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, cut the check. Tesla, Elon Musk, cut the check. These corporations get together and fund this, then it can be easily funded. It can be funded, and it would be funded efficiently, and we wouldn't have to worry about the government, and it would be paid very quickly. So ultimately, what I would say to you is that when you have the reparations debate, don't leave the corporations out of it. Also, don't leave major institutions out of it, like the Catholic Church. Dr. Claude Anderson, bless his soul, he wrote extensively about how the Catholic Church played a crucial role in pushing for slavery, that there was a point where the Catholic Church could have put an end to all that nonsense very quickly. There was a time where a bishop down in South America said, he wrote a letter to the Pope and he said, gosh, this slavery thing, it seems kind of bad. It seems like it could be unethical. Maybe God doesn't approve of us beating and enslaving and raping other human beings and stealing their freedom. Maybe God would not be pleased if he saw us mistreating other human beings in this way. And so he asked the Pope, he said, is this okay? Is God down with this? And you know what the Pope did? The Pope was like, yeah, it's all right. It's all right. And by the way, send me a couple of slaves while you're at it. I need about 15 of these slaves. So send me about 15 slaves up to the Vatican, and we'll call it even. That's what happened. So the Pope easily could have put an end to this. And so lots of people were participants in this process. And slavery is probably the worst manifestation of what capitalism has done throughout the world. I'm not completely anti-capitalist, but capitalism has to be regulated. And the problem with America is that you don't have regulated capitalism, which is why you have so much slavery in America. If you don't believe me, just look at the American prison system. That literally is formalized legal slavery. The government is allowed to enslave you if you've been convicted of a crime. So all they have to do is change the law in such a way that they can convict you of a crime, and then next thing you know, they can make you a slave. They can have you working a $30 an hour job and making $5 a day, and everybody's going to say it's okay because you are a criminal. But a criminal is a very arbitrary label. Like, for example, how many of you would probably say that chances are at some point George Bush was a criminal? How many of you would say George Bush is a criminal? Give me a yes or no. Uh, let's name a Democrat Party person. How many of you would say that at some point there was probably something that Barack Obama may have been involved in that where he could be prosecuted and they could call him a criminal? How many of y'all think, if you know a lot about politics, you'll know where I'm going with this, that politics is funny. One minute you're great, next minute you're a convict. Do you know, for example, in Illinois, where Barack Obama came out of, he rose through American politics very quickly. Well, one thing about my state of Illinois, this is the state I live in, they have an extraordinary number of ex-governors who went to prison. Do you know that? Not just Blagojevich. I think they got two or three other governors. And I said, man, that's got to be so crazy that you become governor of a state and you're like, mama, I made it, right? You like that, like that'll make you proud. Like when you like, my baby is the governor. And the next thing you know, your baby is like on his way to prison. This has happened several times in the state of Illinois. So you can't tell me that Barack Obama, the brilliant man that he is, very charismatic, very sharp, I have nothing against him. You can't tell me that he was able to rise through Illinois politics like a lightning bolt, faster than people that have been doing it for 20 or 30 years before him. without getting a little help that could be scrutinized if somebody really looked at it under a microscope. So my point is to say that in politics, it's very messy. You make the wrong person mad, you could be easily labeled a criminal because they go back and find something you did and say, oh, this happens all the time. So my point is to say that in America, that's where slavery comes from, right? They just say, if we can label you as a criminal, then we can technically make you a slave. And that's what Joe Biden in the crime bill did. They labeled millions and millions of black people as criminals, and then therefore they were able to put you back into slavery, no different from what they did during the black codes. Okay, so anyway, let me keep reading here. So remember, so reparations is not just for the government, it's for the corporations. I need y'all to remember that. So when you get in these debates with people, you make sure you bring that up because they're gonna act like they don't have the money. They're gonna act like they ain't got it. All right. But the corporations, they definitely got it. All right. So let's keep going here. So on the eve of the Civil War, the private sector had invested more capital into slavery than all levels of government had invested in the entire nation up to that point in time. Slave owners profited without having to work. Their return on investment was high, about 500% for each dollar. So they were 5xing their money on your black ass. They literally did this with black people. Page 194, the Black History Reader, the website's powernomics.com. Typical expenses for a slave cost the owner $12 a year, while each slave was expected to produce at least $55 a year, yielding a profit of $43 per year per slave. Take a moment and reflect on the depth of the research this man did in this book. He can tell you how much money they made per year per slave. So when you hear Kamala or Trump or whoever gets elected, when you hear them say, we're going to look into reparations, but we got to go research it. The first question that should be asked is, well, but did you talk to Dr. Claude Anderson? Did you talk to Randall Robinson? Did you talk to any of the brother at Duke University? I can't remember his name. Put his name in the chat. Darity, Sandy. Did you talk to Sandy Darity? Did you bring those people in, or are you just assuming that what you don't know is the same as what nobody knows? Like, are you playing with me? Are you gaslighting me? Because the research has been done. He just specifically states how much money they were making from you. That's an amazing profit margin. So making $43 per year per slave. So in today's economy, $43 would be about $10,000. So ownership of 100 slaves will be worth $1 million in today's market. And that's not $1 million total in market cap. No, that's not market value. That's per year. Per year. $1 million a year that you made from your slaves. So 10,000, so $43 a year was the profit. Let's go through this again. The profit was $43 a year. $43 per year was equivalent, according to Dr. Anderson, to about $10,000 today. So I think he's going back, 300 years or so. 10,000, if you had 100 slaves, that just add two zeros to the 10,000, you got $1 million. 100,000 and $1 million, that's $1 million a year that's being made. So a business that makes $1 million a year in profit could easily be seen to be a $10-15 million business, depending on which multiple that you use. So they built massive amounts of wealth on the backs of black people. This is undeniable. This is proven clearly. This is not something that can be disputed anymore. The labor of a slave produced the money for the slave owner to invest in all forms of property and assets for even more profit. So here's another point he's making. This is the point I made to you guys a lot about compound interest. When we're figuring out where black wealth goes, why black people don't have the wealth we deserve, well, you need to go look at compound interest. And you need to understand that when you spend money, when you go to the club, when you go buy a Gucci watch, when you go and you spend money on a new vacation, or you buy that new Mercedes in your driveway, people are taking that car note, that car in your driveway that's decreasing your wealth is making someone else wealthy. Because so if you give them, so let's say you buy this car, it's $50,000, you pay it off. By the time you're done paying it off, you've given them $75,000. But you didn't just give them $75,000. What you did actually was you gave them $75,000 plus interest. If you take the $75,000 and you invest it over a 20 or 30-year period, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in generational wealth that you've given them. So just by you paying off your car on time, because all y'all pay your bills on time. I know responsible folks when I see them. So you're paying your car note on time consistently every month, and you're creating this annuity for other people. You're literally building generational wealth, but you're building it for others. So what doesn't make sense to me is this. I have no problem with the fact that you might have got a Mercedes. Nothing wrong with that. My wife is about to get one right now, and I told her, baby, go get what you want to get. The problem I have is not that you got the Mercedes. The problem I have is that some of you might have the Mercedes and have no generational wealth. It's okay to get the Mercedes, but you cannot have a Mercedes if you don't have generational wealth. So you build the generational wealth, and then you get the Mercedes with the profits. You get the Mercedes with the extra money. Like, so for example, what we do with options and stuff like that. When he talks about making money without working, I did a whole training called How to Make Money Without Working. And a lot of you know what I'm talking about. About a million of you have actually watched that video, and I hope a million more watch it. I was explaining it to our son upstairs in the kitchen just now, literally right before I came to talk to you. So what you do is you don't give away, you don't deplete your capital base. What you do is you use the capital base to generate extra income, and then you use the extra income to go and consume and to buy nice stuff for yourself. You can get the nice stuff, but you can't put the cart before the horse. If you put the cart before the horse, your horse is not going to move. But if you put the horse before the cart, you can go a very long way. So it ain't so the problem is not the cart. The problem is damn sure ain't the horse. The problem is that you got the cart in front of the damn horse. Put the order of the damn thing. Shift your priorities. Put the horse in front of the cart and let the horse go. And then you can have the nice stuff. But it does take something that isn't really present in the culture, which is delayed gratification. You can't, you can't just think you're going to get it all overnight or go and just try to be flashy. You have to be smart with the money. Okay. So anyway, if you want to see that training, how to make money without working, if you text the word money to the number 87948, you'll instantly get a text back, and that training, the link to the training will be there. I encourage you to watch it with your whole family. It'll rock your world. I know it's going to do. This is my PhD in action. I broke it down in a way that anybody can understand. So just text the word money to 87948. It takes about 40 minutes, but I guarantee you, after you watch it for 40 minutes, you're gonna be a transformed person. I promise you. So text the word money to the number 87948. That's called How to Make Money Without Working. You'll instantly get the text back, and the link will be right there, and you can click it and watch it right then. All right. So anyway, let me keep reading here. So Dr. Claude Anderson says on page 194 of the Black History Reader, which you can buy at PowerNow, he says, slave power and monopoly power are similar in market impact and wealth building. Both produce massive profits from absolute control of assets. Control assets, produce power, produce profits. So if you have no assets, it's hard to have power. You certainly aren't going to create profits. You want to own the asset, because if you don't, then you'll become the asset. Slave owners had absolute power over labor, controlled agriculture, wealth building, come on, Dr. Anderson, and political power. So they had control over labor, they controlled agriculture, they controlled wealth building, generational wealth, and they had political power. Political power, something that we always talk about because we think power is in the voting. The power is not in the voting, the power is in the money, because the money buys the votes. You can have money without votes, but you can't have votes without money. Kamala Harris could not run for president if she did not have over $1 billion in her war chest, or whatever amount they've got sitting around just to run ads to convince people like you and I to vote. That's just a fact. Let's keep going. In the early 1900s, the board game Monopoly was created as an educational tool to illustrate the impact of the concentration of wealth, land, and power. In Monopoly, the winner of the game is the player who has acquired the greatest control, wealth, power, and possession of entire groups of assets that generate unearned profits from passive investments. Damn, I love this. In Monopoly, the winner of the game is the player who has acquired the greatest control. Control is connected to freedom. If you don't have control over your own life, then you won't be free. If someone else has control over you, then they take your freedom. Control, and in addition to control, wealth and power and possession. So he talks about wealth, which is financial resources and other types of wealth. Power, which is connected to wealth, because economic power can be used to colonize and oppress other people. You've experienced that from the negative side of that. And possession of entire groups of assets that generated unearned profits from passive investments. So when I'm talking to you guys about buying stock for your children, what are we talking about? We're talking about making them winners in the economic game. The winner of the game is the player who has acquired the greatest control, wealth, power, and possession. So you want things in their possession. You want things in the possession of the family of entire groups of assets because that will generate unearned profits from passive investments. I'm not playing with you when I tell you that the people that make the most money in America are not the workers. The people that make the most money in America are not the people who get up and go to work every day. They generate unearned profits from passive investments. That means they own and control things. Those assets generate income and they get to keep the money. So, what do you own and control? Negro, you went to college, you got all these degrees, you've been working hard your whole life. The big hard question you must ask yourself is what do you own and control? You tell me that you're successful. You tell me that you're representing Black excellence. Well, I'm going to challenge and say, well, what do you own and control? What do you, even animals on y'all? Do y'all know this? That animals actually measure, like when female animals are looking for who to mate with, the biggest variable they use to determine which male they want to be with is the male who controls the most territory, because it's about allocation of scarce resources, it's about the ability to get what you need. Literally, and animals don't go to college. They don't read books, and they don't know anything about Dr. Claude Anderson. But even animals know this. But if you look around and you see a lot of people who don't own nothing, but they looking flashy, looking fly, they got a good black job, they've been propped up by white folks. They literally will walk around as if they're the most successful among us, and that's not how I measure success. I kind of think, well, what do you control? What's yours? What are you managing? What are you responsible for? Even that's a fundamental principle of manhood, actually. In a lot of villages in Africa, if you're a man and you call yourself a man and you don't have a wife and children that you're something that you're responsible for, then they'll say you're not a man. You're actually a little boy. You're a kid. Like, get out of here. You can't make any decisions in the village because you haven't gone through the rite of passage. You're supposed to own and control something, even if it's just your family and your household. So taking responsibility for something, and having that desire to do that, and then properly managing the resources and opportunities that you get goes a very long way. Remember, the word poor stands for passing over opportunities repeatedly. So sometimes we stay poor because every time we get an opportunity to acquire something, build something, or own something, we pass that up so that we can get that fast dollar, or we can get something that's flashy, or we can go buy that consumer item. And next thing you know, your broke ass is sitting over there with a Gucci belt in a Ferrari, but you're deep in debt and you don't own and control anything, and you're financially fragile because that man could pull the rug out from under you at any moment and literally destroy your life. Why? Well, because he has these things Dr. Anderson talks about. He has, unlike yourself, he has absolute power over labor, wealth building, and political power. And he also has acquired control over you and your life, wealth that is used to exude power and possession of entire groups of assets, or you could say entire groups of people. Right? We are the assets for others in many cases. If you have a child in prison or something, then they are an asset of the state. That's why someone is making money off that person. If you have a child in the public school system, your child is an asset. They get money per child. Am I lying? Tell me if you get what I'm saying. Tell me if you understand this. I know I sound a little bit pushed on this, but I can't help it. This is really affecting me right now. Your child every day, your little black child is going to that failing school where 90% of the kids can't read. They are an asset. They are a part of a group of assets that generate unearned profits from passive investments. Now, this might be a more active investment, but it's still the same thing. But then again, it's debatable as to whether or not the Chicago Public Schools is actually investing in the child who cannot read. So I would say that child is a passive investment. You just sit your black ass in the seat, and we're going to get our little $5,000 per head, and we're going to make our money, and we're going to go on with our lives because we're going to protect our teachers union to make sure we can keep getting the money. And we don't really care what happens to you after you walk out this door. Let's keep going. So he says the American economy, a vast pool of wealth and power, was built by the labor of enslaved blacks, and when formal slavery ended after 360 years, the accumulated wealth was transferred into businesses and industries on the New York Stock Exchange on Wall Street. So Wall Street, which is the center of wealth and power, is that's where your money, that's where your reparations is at. You want your reparations? Go to Wall Street. That's where the money's at, right? This makes perfect sense. When people say that America is the richest country on earth, um, if you look at the total value of stocks in the S&P 500, that's kind of what they're talking about. When they say that America is the richest country on earth, what they're looking at are your corporations and your publicly traded companies. Your publicly traded companies are worth about $40 trillion. 40 trillion. So, because black people, we're the only people in the history of this country that were forced to work for free for a very long time. We built a lot of foundational power and wealth that was then transferred into these publicly traded companies that now have accumulated $40 trillion in assets. So I say at the end of the day, like Joe Pesci in Goodfellas, F you pay me. Don't tell me who to vote for, F you pay me. Don't talk about Black Lives Matter, F you pay me. Don't tell me how much of a DEI program you're trying to re-implement. F you pay me. Pay me my money. I don't want your DEI. I want OWN. I want to replace your DEI program with an OWN, which means that if I own the company, then I don't need your DEI. Your DEI, to some extent, no disrespect if you all believe in it. I'm a fan of affirmative action. I benefited from it. That's how I got my job at Syracuse. I was hot shit. I was, the only African American on the planet to get a PhD in finance, but even then the barriers were still high. Affirmative action is the only reason they hired me. They would not have hired me without affirmative action. I'm open to that completely. However, if I control something, remember Dr. Anderson talks about, he uses the words control, wealth, and power together, right? So if I'm an invited guest in your house, I don't really have any control. I don't really have any power. All I have is proximity to your power. The only thing I have is whatever you'll allow me to have. Do you understand? I don't want you to invite me into your house. I want to own a house. How about I run the damn business and invite you in? How about I create an affirmative action program for white people? How about I let you can come in? I don't have nothing against white folks. I don't. Some of my best friends are white. I promise. Right? No, seriously, I have nothing against nothing against anybody. But I don't really like this way you're playing this game where you say, yeah, we're all gonna work together, but I'm gonna drive the car. Yeah, we're all gonna travel together, but I'm gonna hold the wallet, I'm gonna drive the car, I'm gonna own everything, and I'm gonna decide where we're gonna go. I want to make decisions too. So my issue with things like DEI is that when you go back, here's the thing. When you go back and you look at that chart I showed you all that chart of black unemployment. Look at this. All these years where they had these DEI programs, affirmative action programs, all these diversity programs. Every company had a diversity statement. Well, we don't discriminate based on race, or creed, or color, or religion, and blah, blah, sexuality. Despite all these so-called efforts you made to treat me fairly, black unemployment has consistently been twice as high as white unemployment. So what you're really saying to me is that you're doing the very natural act of giving me the last piece of chicken. You're giving me the leftovers. You're giving me the scraps. And let me tell you why I'm not mad about it. I'm not really mad about it because I think you a damn sucker if you think somebody's going to bring you into their house and treat you the same as if you actually live there. There is nobody, give me a yes if you understand this. There is nobody, you're not going to bring a guest in your house and let them eat before your children, are you? You're not going to let them have the master bedroom. You give them the spare bedroom. You might let them sleep in the basement, and they better be glad that they can stay there. So I don't expect that anything other than what I'm seeing in front of me. Yeah, of course. White people are gonna hire other white people first. Why would they hire a black? Why would I ain't got no, you ain't got nothing in common with me like that. But your brother, your sister, your child, you're gonna take care of them first. And I'm not mad at you because that's exactly what I do. I take care of mine. Nothing wrong with that. So what I'm really saying is I think this conversation is not just one you have to have with white people. I don't care about getting allies and we got to go to the Democratic Party and get the allies on board. Man, to hell with the allies. The allies are worse than the damn enemies. The allies are the ones that'll give you a couple of crumbs just to keep you in place. The allies are the ones that are running these schools where 90% of the black kids can't even read. They are pissing on your most valuable asset. They're literally peeing on these children. And I hate saying it like that. I know it sounds to me, I'm from Chicago. Maybe the R. Kelly thing is going. I have no idea. But they're literally doing an R. Kelly on your kids. They're literally like, we're going to take the most valuable thing you have. which is your damn seed. You can't exist without your seed. You can't exist without your children. Your legacy dies. You're genocided if your children fail to exist. And we're going to destroy your kids. And you're going to let us do it because somehow you think that my ice is colder than yours. You think that his ice is the best ice, and you never question the idea. If I come along and I say, well, why don't we educate our own kids? Why don't we pull together some money and do what the Nation of Islam might do, or the Hebrew Israelites, and just educate our own kids? You call that radical? Well, that Negro talking crazy. He over in that conscious community trying to be conscious. They ain't well. I'm sorry. I'd rather be conscious than to be unconscious, because right now you're acting like you don't even have a brain in your skull. Einstein said that the definition of insanity is what? To keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So if my consciousness bothers you, what should be bothering you actually is your lack of consciousness, but you're too unconscious to be bothered by your lack of consciousness. So it's because an unconscious person can't explain to them why they're unconscious. You can try to wake them up. Some people don't want to wake up. They want to go right back to sleep. And this is all part of the process. It's part of the plan. I'm reading to you. So let me keep reading. I'm gonna read more of what Dr. Anderson says. So basically he's saying, let me summarize where we are, because I don't want to get too far off track. He's basically saying that all this wealth that was accumulated by enslaving your ancestors poured right into Wall Street. That these big companies with $40 trillion in assets, they have a big chunk of your reparations. So if the total reparations package is $14 trillion, $10 trillion should come right out of the bank accounts of the biggest companies in America, because I have seen these companies. I wrote my whole dissertation on the stock market. I have seen Nvidia lose 200 billion in market cap in a day. So if you can stand a $200 billion loss in market cap in one day, you can write a check to the black community for $200 billion if you really like us, like you say you do. And if you don't, that's okay. Do you, but don't you dare come to me and act like you my friend when you know for damn well, you know for damn sure that you owe us and you're not giving us what we deserve. You're not my friend if you will watch me suffer. I cannot have you as a friend anymore. Let's keep going here. So the stock exchange was a mechanism for pooling wealth to finance even bigger industries. Under slavery, black labor was a commodity, just like cotton, tobacco, and grain. A slave was movable personal property which could be collateralized. The value of a slave was usually consistent in the region, but as the value of slaves fluctuated, so did the prices of the slave-made products that were sold on the stock exchange and in the general marketplace. So as the price of slaves went up and down, the prices of the products made by the slaves went up and down, which meant Wall Street profits went up and down, which meant Wall Street valuations went up and down. So there is a direct connection between the values of these companies and the values of the slaves, because y'all did the work. The value of a slave reflected the value of labor and an expected return on investment. Playing the stock market was seeking additional unearned income from slaves and the products of their labor. The same hands that held the plantation whips were able to monopolize wealth building in the nation's marketplaces. Slavery generated wealth became the foundation for the nation's banking, insurance, real estate, telecommunications, transportation, manufacturing, agricultural, and processing industries. Wall Street was literally founded on slavery. Slavery built Wall Street. Slave labor provided the capital and the financial structure of Wall Street that remains a key pillar in upholding racial inequality and socioeconomic oppression today. Are you following this? I want to make sure this sinks in. This has to sink in so that when you're having these debates with people about reparations or whatever, you got to include the people that actually have the money. The government is deep in debt, but corporations are not. Corporations are much more financially efficient than the government. So just like an attorney, let me just tell you, I'm gonna tell you a little secret. I talked about this with my wife on our podcast. It's called Pillow Talk with Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia. We talked today about the debate, and I said, I think Kamala Harris won that debate because, for one clear reason, she's a prosecutor. And as a prosecutor, that means that she knows how to prepare for trial. Donald Trump's an arrogant prick. I could see him sitting around not listening to his advisors, not taking good advice because a lot of his answers just sounded ridiculous. He just didn't sound presidential at all in that debate. Again, I just watch this stuff for entertainment. I don't whoever wins or loses, I don't care. I want you to win, period. You can win under a Democrat, you can win under a Republican. I'm not worried about y'all because y'all understand what to do. But anyway, just in terms of my observation, I said a prosecutor is going to prepare for trial. Kamala was a pretty good prosecutor. She was Attorney General of California. And second of all, she also knows how to put people on the defensive. Because that's what you're doing. You're being prosecuted. So when you get prosecuted and attacked, you get on the defensive. And she did a great job of getting Trump so much on the defensive that he wasn't able to play offense. You can't score points on defense. You're supposed to block and counterpunch. He wasn't able to do that because he's so arrogant that he wanted to spend all his time talking about how great he is. Right. Now, here's the other thing that's interesting, though. This is another thing lawyers understand. And this is why Kamala, I believe deep in her soul, she understands completely why you deserve reparations. She gets it. She understands. And the reason she understands is because one thing lawyers do is that when lawyers file a lawsuit, one thing that they do is when they're thinking about who to include in the lawsuit, who to sue, they look for the people who have what? Type in the chat. Type the one word. There's one word that the lawyers look for. They're looking for the people who have the blank. Put it in there. Okay, I see rich money. Yeah, they're looking for people who have the money. That's who you include. You don't go around if you're trying to be a successful lawyer. Lawyers in here will tell you. I'm sure some of y'all are attorneys. You don't go around suing broke people. Like, that's gonna waste your time. You're not gonna get nothing for it. You find the people involved in the case who have money. This is why when we do financial consciousness training every day, I talk to you all about how when you have more money you have to be more careful because the deep pockets will cause you to be sued. Somebody will literally come up to your porch uninvited, slip on your porch on purpose, and then sue you because they hurt their back, and you'll be like, I didn't even tell you to come up here. Why were you even here? Right? But they're that's what they do. Right? So money creates these, like, it attracts these bloodhounds who know where the money's at. So here's my point. I think we should take a note from the Kamala Harrises of the world. I think Kamala understands. I bet if Kamala was listening, she would totally get it. And I know she listens because she used a term that only Alicia and I have been using in reference to reparations: undiagnosed, untreated trauma. I haven't heard anybody else use that term on a consistent basis. My wife and I have been talking about that for about 4 or 5 years now. Undiagnosed, untreated trauma. And I heard Kamala use those specific words. I said, she heard us. She's listening. She's listening not just to me. She's listening to a lot of people, but she's hearing that. So I think that deep down, she knows why you deserve reparations. She also understands why the people with the money need to be included in the lawsuit. But then third, I think that what she's waiting for is she's waiting for you to make her do it. She's waiting for you to make the politicians do it. That's what I think it was Roosevelt who sat down with a bunch of black leaders 50 years ago, 80 years ago, whatever the number was. I guess it was 80 years ago. And he said he listened to them explain all the problems of being black and all the unfair practices and all the things that people are doing wrong to black people. And you know what he said? The president said, okay, I agree with everything you said. Now I need you to go out and make me do it. Make me do it. That's what politicians expect. So they're literally looking at, I think they look at the black community and say, don't be no punk. Like, why y'all a bunch of punks? Why are you up here begging and asking us to do stuff? That doesn't work. We don't do stuff when you ask us to do it. You have to force our hand. You have to push us. And so what I would say is on reparations, anybody who believes in it, I don't think we can be nice and get this done. I think we have to be hard. We have to negotiate hard. We have to earn respect. And you don't earn respect by begging. You don't earn respect by marching and praying. You don't earn respect by just doing what you're told without asking questions. You earn respect by saying, look, I'm going to drive a hard bargain with you. If you don't give me what I want, I'm not voting for you. Or why would you do that? That's bad. That's if you don't vote, you don't count. Your ancestors died for you to have the right to vote. They're going to try all that, right? And then if you say, well, yeah, I get all that, but yeah, if you want my vote, then just do what I need you to do, and I'd love to vote. I can't wait to vote for you, right? And then eventually they say, oh, you drive a hard bargain, but I respect you. Here you go. We'll give you what you want to get your vote. That's how negotiation gets done. And for whatever reason, I think because we're trained to want to be liked by other people, we don't understand that. We haven't learned that apparently. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you can't force politicians to act, they're not gonna move. When I dealt with the Obama administration, On that mass incarceration issue, when Russell Simmons and I were doing that thing, it was so hard. I was shocked by how difficult it was to even get them to do something that they promised they were going to do. We didn't ask them to do anything crazy or radical. We simply, I wrote this letter to the president, and Russell was the guy who promoted it. He got the celebrities and everybody to sign it. I don't know any of these people. And it was a very politely written letter. It was a letter that I would never write because I'm a little bit too raw. That's why I have so many people that can't stand me. It's because I got to do a straight no chaser, right? And I wrote this letter, and I first version I wrote, Russell was like, "That's a little rough. Why don't you lighten it up?" I said, "Okay, all right, I'm gonna do this for the brothers that are on lockdown, right? Okay, so all right, okay, boys, calm down. Don't express your anger. Just be polite, be respectful, whatever." So I did. I kind of wrote a little polite little, Mr. President, we respect you, blah, blah, blah. And basically we asked them to simply deal with the incarceration policy that was causing so many black people to go to prison. And I said, you made this promise in your campaign. This is something that the black community wants. Blah 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 blah. You would not believe how much pushback we got. You would not believe how hard it was. Russell paid a price for that. He did. He's more in the in crowd. I'm not in the in crowd. I'm just this guy who runs his mouth, and every now and then someone hears me. Russell is Russell, right? So he knows all the celebrities, and some of them wouldn't sign. Jay-Z and Beyonce refused to sign, but a lot of people did. Chris Rock did, Will and Jada did. A lot of people signed this letter, and as the momentum built up, Justin Bieber actually was the one who sent it over the top, believe it or not. Shout out to him. I have to give credit where it's due. And it took that much work. I was stunned. I was floored by how difficult it was to get them to do even something as basic as that. So my point is to say to you, if you're trying to do this game, you cannot be polite. And the other reason we cannot be polite, in my opinion, is because our children and grandchildren are depending on us to not sit around trying to make friends. We're trying to build a legacy. We're trying to make progress. I don't want to make friends. I want to make progress. So in this game of politics, I don't believe black people have any friends. I don't think you have anybody that advocates for you in a significant way. You're going to have to advocate for yourself because even your black leaders have been bought and paid for, and that's just what it is. Okay. So be one people to me are the greatest hope of the black community because you're the ones who have the capability of eventually becoming economically independent enough and intelligent enough and have this enough self-esteem and be independent enough on all levels to really be able to confront the bullshit. They got so many people out here that can't fight. They're not even in a position to fight. You can't really go to war in a capitalist society when you don't even have any capital. You can't battle. You can't fight your boss. All your boss has got to do is say, "I'm not sending you your paycheck," and you'll be right back on your knees, ready to do whatever you're told. Right? So you can't fight these battles when you are committed to a culture of ignorance and financial insecurity. Because the first thing they do is they declare economic warfare on you and they use the dollar bill to control you. So if you want to be able to really fight, if you really want to do this whole like strong black woman, strong black man kind of thing, you got to prepare for battle. And that's why we have so many veterans in here. And I love to shout out the veterans because I have so much respect for y'all because y'all know how to fight, man. You're not scared. You're not, or maybe you are scared, but you don't let the fear stifle you and keep you from making progress. You understand what it means to have a mission and to make a plan and to have a strategy and to leave it all out there on the field. And I don't know if our people are built that way. I don't think that is an inherent part of black culture. I don't think that for in some segments of the culture, things like discipline and accountability and strategy and all that and proactive thinking is not really encouraged. It's more like just sit around, let people abuse you and victimize you so that you can then put yourself back in the wheelchair and complain about how hard it is to be black. Nobody cares about that. Nobody's going to listen. So anyway, let me keep reading here. Let me keep reading before I go off too far. All right. So Dr. Anderson says here on page 195 of the Black History Reader, this is at powernomics.com, so you can get a copy. He says, under slavery, black labor was a commodity just like cotton, tobacco, and grain. A slave was movable personal property. The value of a slave reflected the value of labor and an expected return on investment. Let me scroll down. Slavery generated wealth, became the foundation of the nation's banking, insurance, real estate, telecommunications, transportation, manufacturing, agriculture, and processing industries. Descendants of black slaves, that's you, do not have the financial capacity to compete in a real life monopoly game. They never acquired it. They were not allowed to participate in the wealth generating land grabs at the beginning and were denied the essential tools to generate capital and never received the promised 40 acres and a mule. So what he's saying is that it's very hard for you to compete in this real life monopoly game because you're hundreds of years behind. You got white folks out here that can write a check for $10 million and fund a building on their alma mater's campus. You've got white folks out here that can go and donate, $30 million, $50 million to a presidential campaign. When black people raised money for Kamala Harris, it was like 1.5 million or some kind of drop in the bucket amount of money. So our ability to really compete in these sort of big boy economic games is somewhat limited. So what you have to do though is you have to have a broader understanding of capital and what that is. And what you should realize is that because you are the chosen people, because you are special in so many ways, because you are so extraordinary, you have other forms of capital that other people see, but you don't see it yourself because the capital doesn't show up in the form of money. But so many areas, you possess $1 trillion worth of capital. Your athletes alone, those little black boys and girls that are coming, that can only come out of a black woman's womb, only a black woman's womb can produce a Michael Jordan, who's a multi-billion-dollar asset. Only a black woman's womb can produce a Shaquille O'Neal. Only a black woman's womb can produce a Bo Jackson or a Noah Lyles and all these other extraordinary athletes. So your athletes are a form of capital. The NCAA has made tens of billions of dollars by basically controlling, there's that word control again, that by controlling the black athlete and getting him mobilized where they can extract resources from his talent. Now, finally, in the NCAA, for example, the money's being made by the athletes, and I've been fighting for that for 25 years. I used to write articles about why college athletes should be paid back in the 1990s. I remember when I was at University of Kentucky, I was a grad student at the time, and the coach, Rick Pitino, one of the players told me that the coaches don't want us reading your articles because you keep saying athletes should be paid. And I said, well, of course they should be paid. Why wouldn't you get paid? You're the one who's dunking the basketball. You're the one that the fans are coming to see. Why should the little short white guy on the sidelines get $20 million and you get nothing? That doesn't even make any damn sense. And it took time to get there. So now we're there. But generally speaking, the ability to extract the money out of your capital base is an acquired skill. It requires us to not just produce millions of little black boys who want to play basketball and football and millions of black boys who can't even read at grade level. You take those black boys who are not going to be 6'8", 240 pounds. You take those black girls who can't make money rapping and twerking like Cardi B, and you train them on economics. You train them on how to identify the wealth and to extract the income from the wealth. Dr. Anderson talks about this. He says in Monopoly, the winner of the game is the player who has acquired the greatest control, wealth, and power and possession of entire groups of assets and generated unearned profits from passive investments. The possession of an entire group of assets, your athletes, and generating unearned profits from massive investments. So you see the asset, which is, oh my God, my cousin can run the 40-yard dash in 4.2 seconds and all the NFL teams want him. And then what do? You can then maintain control of the asset. So you say, okay, so we need you to make sure that this talent is used to the benefit of our community, not the benefit of other communities, because of course they're going to come after you now because they see how great you are. And we're going to make sure we develop an infrastructure so that when that money comes pouring in from this asset called you, that we're going to make sure the whole hood benefits, the whole family benefits, right? But you have to have people that can build infrastructure. So what Dr. Claude Anderson talks about, which might be why some of the HBCUs won't even invite him in, which drives me crazy, is he said, look, stop producing black people that can only go work for white people. Stop producing black children who dream of one day having a white boss, and they think that's the biggest dream they can ever have. That's silly. That's ridiculous. That doesn't lead to any of these things. Control, wealth, or power. They're literally sitting next to someone else's power. You're being subject. You're literally trying to be the highest paid hoe in the system. That's it. I don't want to be a boss. I want to be a high paid hooker. That's what you're saying. Because when you get that black job finally, you have no control over how that company's run. You're not building much wealth. And also you don't have any power. They can fire you on your day off like they did Smokey in the movie Friday. So mindset is everything. This is why, if you wanted to, I mean, why do you, this is why I'm getting too pumped up. Let me calm down. This is why, when I was thinking about what class I want to teach every day, I said, I want to do something different. I want to create something called financial consciousness, because all consciousness is that ability to see the big picture. You're not trying to just get in the game and get your little spot in the game, get your little black job. You see the whole chessboard, you see the whole monopoly board, and you say, I want to be over there, or I want to control all of this over here, right? And you have children that think that way, they're going to position themselves differently and not get caught in the trap. Because we love the trap. We have a whole musical genre called trap music. And we celebrate being in the trap. We like traps. We like prison traps and job traps and student loan traps and any trap we can get. Because then you get in the trap, then you get the moral high ground of being able to complain about how you're trapped your whole life. But sometimes, just to be honest, if the culture is a bad culture, you literally walk right into the trap without them even pushing you. They don't even force you to get in the trap. You just you're like, well, where's the trap at? I want to be in this freedom. I don't know what to do with this freedom because freedom takes responsibility and accountability. So just put me in the trap. That way I can blame my whole situation on somebody else. This is so let me keep reading here. All right. So descendants of black slaves do not have the financial capacity to compete in a real life monopoly game. They never acquired it. They were not allowed to participate in the wealth generating land grabs at the beginning and were denied the essential tools to generate capital and never received the promised 40 acres and a mule. It is impossible for blacks to play and win in a society where they own practically nothing. Slavery compares to life's monopoly game in that all blacks are forced to play the game of capitalism without the benefit of capital or monetary assets. They were not allowed to stand in line when the land and resources were doled out to Europeans. The land aggregated by whites at the beginning of the country has been passed down from generation to generation, doubling in value every 20 to 30 years. So this land that their great, 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 great grandparents got has been doubling in value every 20 to 30 years. And the land that your great 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 grandparents tried to get, some of them actually got the land, was actually stolen. So this is why President Harris, I'm going to start calling her President Harris. I think this lady's going to win. I really do. And I have to give her props. She's doing a great job. She's really showing up. You may not like her, but the lady kicked Trump's ass in that debate. You got to admit to that. Let's stop lying right now. So anyway, with that said, President Harris, I would say, I need you to recognize this. I need you to understand this, and I need somebody to respond to the fact that we were locked out of this game and there are things that we are owed. But also, in addition to that, what I want to say to you, and this ain't about Trump or Harris, I'm talking to you now, is I need you to understand that God also has a plan for you too. I believe in that stuff, the chosen people, God's plan. I think God gave you some resources. God gave you some opportunities. America is a racist country for sure, without a doubt, but it's also the richest country in the world, damn it. And you got opportunities all around you. And the worst thing that you can ever do to yourself is convince yourself that being in America means you don't have a chance to be anything that you don't want to. If our kids just simply were encouraged through good culture to read books every day, that would increase black wealth by a couple $1 trillion. I've never been a white man who told me I could not read a book. I've never run into that guy yet. If I did, I'd probably kick him in his testicles. So ultimately, you have and you have assets. We talked about the athletes. You have your culture. Your culture is in your music and all that. That's another asset, such that if you had people with the right mindset of control of resources, they would have seen this coming and said, let's control this thing. We got this gold mine here called hip hop. It's going to be worth billions of dollars. Let's make sure we take control of this before somebody else does. Because the way wealth works is that once you have something other people want, you have to be able to defend it. You must be able to defend it. If you cannot defend it, then someone will come along and take it. They're not going to let you hold on to it just because they want to be nice to you. Get that out of your head right now. So when you walk around, you say, oh, every time we get something, they come and they take it. Well, yeah, they took it because you just kind of let them take it. You let them have it. Oh, they be, you know how they be using us and they be exploiting us. Yeah, but sometimes it's happening right in front of you. Like they put the contract in front of you and you didn't have to sign it. You just didn't feel like reading. You just felt like reading was whack and it took too much time. So you just went ahead and signed because you wanted to be a famous rapper. And now they're extracting money out of your butt. Now now you feel like you went to a Diddy party because you got screwed. Yes, you did. You got screwed. And sometimes you are a willing participant in other people's ability to exploit you because when I came in the room and said, okay, young man, let's work, let's prepare, let's get ready, you thought I was corny. You didn't want to listen to someone like me, so you went out into the culture and the culture got you screwed. So what I really want you to understand is that you have opportunities everywhere. We talked about basic things. the $5 a day plan, let's make it more concrete. $5 a day plan, blackwealthmasterplan.com. It takes 20 years for this to really work the way it's supposed to work. But if you do it the right way, your children and grandchildren will have plenty of wealth to play the game of Monopoly. They will have more wealth than the average white person. All you got to do is invest about $30 a week, $40 a week in the stock market, do it consistently, invest in S&P 500 companies, and don't sell your assets. That way, over time, you're growing. It's like you're growing a garden. Nobody left you a garden for sure. That sucks, but you can grow a garden. See, the opportunity in America when it comes to wealth is this. This is our takeover plan. This is our See, don't tell me about Project 2025. I don't give a damn. That does not scare me. I got Project 2070. They need to be scared of that. By 2070, B1 people will be some of the wealthiest, most economically powerful people on the planet. And let me tell you why. America's big flaw, your big opportunity, your big chance for a come up is from the simple fact that African Americans are not the only people in this country who are bad with money. Most Americans are bad with money. Most Americans are slaves. Most Americans are getting screwed. And it starts with the public school system and how it's built. Most Americans, if you look at most Americans, auto loan debts at an all-time high, credit card debts at an all-time high, student loan debts. I think I said student. I don't know if I said student loan debt, but that's at an all-time high. All kinds of debts at an all-time high because they brainwashed the American consumer to spend, 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 even when they don't have the money anymore. So what's happening is that people that have money, a lot of them are letting their money go. And so if someone can shift their mindset, shift their culture and say, I'm not going to be letting all my money go. I'm going to be collecting the money. I'm going to suck it up like a vacuum cleaner. Then that means that you can participate in a positive way in this wealth transfer. And then if you also take the time to learn these little soft skills, like the ability to manage relationships and the ability to keep your family together and stay on the same page with your spouse, little things that you think have nothing to do with money, oh, it has everything to do with money. Because one other way that wealth gets splattered out into society from your family is through things like divorce or families breaking into pieces or somebody sending all their children to go work for white people or whatever it is, right? So there's opportunity. So my point is to say that yes, we are wasting money. Yes, black people are doing a lot of horrible things when it comes to money, but not all of us are thinking this way. So I applaud you if you're a little bit different in that category. But also remember, white people can be ghetto too. White people can be sloppy too. White people make economic mistakes all the time, and there's plenty of money. These trillions of dollars that are in the economy, not all that money is locked up. That money is available. So little things like the $5 a day investing plan, you can go to blackwealthmasterplan.com. It's totally free, blackwealthmasterplan.com, and it'll get you started. That is one play you can make that will literally make a huge difference, but you have to trust the process and give it time. All right, so let me keep reading here more from Dr. Anderson. So Dr. Anderson says, also, on page 196 of the Black History Reader, which you can find a copy at powernomics.com, he says, slavery compares to life's monopoly game in that all blacks are forced to play the game of capitalism without the benefit of capital and monetary assets. They were not allowed to stand in line when the land and resources were doled out to Europeans. The land aggregated by whites at the beginning of the country has been passed down from generation to generation, doubling in value every 20 to 30 years. Today, the average white person has 3,500 times more wealth than the typical black person. Just like in the game, without money to play, a black player must roll the dice of life and hope to land on free parking, income tax refund, or a social service payout or payment. However, if the black player's dice throw lands him on expensive property or a business that is owned by another player, the black player must pay up, go bankrupt, or go to jail. In real life, if you are alive, you have no choice but to be in the game. But if you have no resources, you have fewer choices and you cannot win unless you apply powernomics principles to your game strategy to win the game. So let's start with with that. He actually question number 68 does relate directly to black unemployment, and I think I'm gonna have to come back to that one because I feel like we've covered a lot today. But what I will say is this. So what he's basically saying is that when you put your children and your grandchildren out of the house and throw them out into the real world, they are entering into a real life monopoly game. And what Dr. Anderson has stated quite accurately is that the game is heavily biased against those who don't have wealth and resources, right? So by doing little things like $5 a day of investing or $30 a week, $35 a week, something like that, or maybe investing in stock consistently with the same amount of money you put into your car note because you love your child more than you love your car, then that will allow your child to enter the powernomics game or the real life monopoly game with capital. They will have resources they control. We did the math, right? If a person invests about $5 a day in the S&P 500, even if they're randomly picking stocks, they're going to have roughly about 100,000 in capital after 20 years. It depends on what era you're talking about, but you're talking about at least tens of thousands of dollars in capital. You put $100,000 into the control of an ambitious, hardworking, financially intelligent 20-year-old. He might go out here and take over the freaking world. I know I would have. If I had 100 grand available in liquid assets that I could use and I could deploy to solve problems and get things done and build businesses and all that, my life would have been completely different. But instead, I was playing the game of Monopoly and I had no money. I had no capital. Right. And then if you go to 30 years, you're talking about $250,000, right? And that's $5 a day. So what if you do, and which $5 a day is $150 a month, but what if you did $600 a month? Because a lot of y'all got car notes that are 600 a month. Again, you love the car dealer, you're giving him 600 a month. Do that for your family too. Well, if you quadruple that and go to 600 a month, then after 20 years, you're talking about $400,000. After 30 years, you're talking about almost a million. So a person who is economically intelligent, let me just explain simple formula. Write this down. A person who has capital, let's say a few $100,000 and they're 27 years old and they hate their job, so they quit their job. And they also have these other skills. They understand a little, just enough about real estate to know that ownership is better than renting. So maybe they want to look into owning property. They want to buy their first house. That's another major step toward wealth. So now they've got capital and they've got real estate. That right there is going to put them in upper middle class or beyond. That puts them ahead of most white people right there. Just the capital and the real estate, they're good, right? But then what if you also spark work ethic and an entrepreneurial spirit? Well, then the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit because entrepreneurship is one of the few ways where you actually have the capacity to experience an exponential growth rate in your income. See, those white boys, that when they do, you should go look at some of the stories of Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg when they were 20 years old. Again, a lot of our boys in the basement making rap albums, they would all go live in a house together and literally create $100 million, billion-dollar companies. There was a house Elon Musk lived in with 20 of his friends, and they would sit in there and drink beer and party and program on the computer. And out of that building, out of that tiny little house, came about $5 billion companies because they all had something that young people have: energy, ambition, and all that. All we got to do is give them a vision and give them some basic instructions. Make sure the kids know how to read, write, and do math so that they can at least sit down and think up and solve problems and figure out how to even build the damn company in the first place. If you give me kids out of the Chicago or Philadelphia public school system who cannot read, write, or do math, I am livid. I am pissed off at the person who allowed that to happen. I'm angry. I'm mad at the parents. I'm mad at the teachers. I'm mad at everybody. I don't even look for who to blame. I blame them all. Because what you did was you took a kid who could have been a multi-million-dollar asset for somebody. This kid could have been a great husband and father, leader. He could have done all these great things, but he doesn't even have the basic tools to be successful. It's really hard to build $1 billion company when you can't even count. Can't do business when you can't read and write. So I'm trying to figure out. To me, it's like a whodunit. I'm like, who the hell destroyed this kid? Like, who ruined this kid's chance to have his version of the American dream? Who stole that from him? That's worse than molesting the damn child. I'm sorry. So I don't know about anybody else, but I get really angry when I hear about these stats. It infuriates me when kids get out of school and they don't have the basics. When they say we have a whole school where not one single child can read, write, or do math at grade level, I'm like, you know what? We need to take the kid from the school and take them from the damn parents, because this is crazy to me. That is insanity. And what really also ends up frustrating me the most about the insanity is that everybody just acts like it's normal. Like, oh, it's just business as usual. We know Negroes can't read anyway, and so we just gonna keep on going about being black. Everybody vote blue no matter who. And I'm like, don't you see what I'm seeing? Like, why are you acting like this is not a big deal? And that is what I would call. I heard somebody use the term the curse of low expectations. That's what it is. You're used to, they treat you like iggas because some of you just, that's all you think that you are. So you will accept an outcome for you and your children that is far beneath what other people would expect for their children. Because I bet you anything you show me one damn school that's full of Jewish kids where 99% of the kids can't read, write, or do math at grade level. There's not one school ever anywhere built ever in the history of that community, I'm sure, that where 99% of, and if that was to happen, even if it got to 20%, oh, they would shut that damn school down in a second. So what's going on with us? Why are we just sitting here and kind of letting all this happen? Because remember, these kids, some of these kids are geniuses. I've talked to them, I've seen them. It doesn't make any sense. So let's think about these things. Let's start with your own kids. I know we can't save the whole world overnight, and I know that's impossible to do, and it's very frustrating. So let's just start with ours, right? Set those standards, get those basics of wealth in place, and I guarantee you that your kid's going to know how to play the economic game at the highest levels. We already have kids coming out of the Black Business School. I just saw Caden the other day. Caden's 14 years old, has already graduated high school, and is already a multimillionaire. Caden was at the White House last week, and Caden couldn't even talk till he was 5 years old. His daddy came and found me when I was at InvestFest and was showing me his son's progress, and I was super proud of him. And he's not the only one. There are so many others out there. So I don't want to sound like doom and gloom. I know I sound like an angry man right now, and it's probably because I am. So I'm gonna go and chill out and give my wife a kiss, and maybe it'll bring my blood pressure down. But at the end of the day, um, what I want to see also another area that can help us is once the kids like the Cadence get into positions of leadership and power, then they become the ones who get to shape the culture. And once the culture gets really reshaped, then I think you're going to see a difference in outcomes for kids. So I think that there's hope. I really believe that there's hope. It's just going to take some time. So maybe we're just ahead of our time. That's all it is. I believe that by the year 2070, Project 2070, I think this is going to be more the norm. We're not going to see this nonsense anymore. All right. So anyway, I got to go, guys. One more thing, if you want to join my estate planning class in the Dr. Boyce Academy, the price is $299 for lifetime access. I dropped it to 99 bucks for anybody that wants to learn the fundamentals and essentials of estate planning. I'm also going to bring in an estate planning expert soon to speak to you as well. So feel free to text the word Boyce to the number 87948, and I'll send you the link tomorrow tomorrow morning where you can sign up. So just text Boyce to the number 87948 and I'll send it to you. And last but not least, you can get a copy of my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, as well as our flashcards for kids and stuff like that. Feel free to go to drboycebooks.com. That's drboycebooks.com. All right, guys, have a good night. God bless you. Thank you for listening to me rant. I know, I think I was on extra rant today. I was listening to myself and I said, Boyce, you ranting today. And I said, no, we just gonna keep on going. So I hope that that's all right. I will see you all tomorrow morning. Yeah, I need a trust. Yeah, so Queen, that'll help you. That's what the essentials of estate planning covers: trusts and wills and probate and everything else. So, God bless you and thank you for putting up with my crazy ass. And I love you all. I'll see you guys later. Have a good night. Talk to you tomorrow.